I'm grinning because I've had this nightmare many, many times, but I just realized my sermon didn't finish printing. So to the phone we go. I've dreamed this so many times. And the universe is laughing at me now. Okay, here we go. Find a stillness. How many of us try to meditate? Raise your hand or type into the chat. Have you tried to be a person who meditates? Like not here on Sunday, but of the course of your usual day-to-day week. I have tried to meditate pretty much since I was a teenager. I go through fits and starts of doing it regularly, and then it kind of gets subsumed to other things. I've tried and I've tried for years to find that stillness, to hold the silence. And my brain, man, it just keeps on making noise. And it doesn't help that I can't stop fidgeting most of the time. My aching back means that getting comfortable takes near constant movement. And my mind just wants to bring up all that I need to do, instead of relishing the chance to settle. So I decided in the last year to get more aggressive with my methods. Now, one Monday a month, I drive up to Fishtown to a little shop on Front Street called Halcyon Floats. Once I walk in, I wave hello to Dan, and I head down the stairs to the subterranean level, where I take out my contacts, I remove all my jewelry, I apply Vaseline to my fingernails, undress, and climb into a sensory deprivation tank, where I shut the door and I block out all light and sound. And there I lie, or rather float, in about 12 inches of highly, highly salinated water. And I lie there until something tells me to get up, until something tells me I'm done, it's over. For about 6 times now, it's been about exactly at the 50-minute mark. One of the most immediate realizations that you have the first time you lie there is just how not silent the world is. Even when I'm alone in my house, which is such a rare occurrence these days, there is so much noise. The honking of horns, the cat meowing for snacks, the distant trolley tracks rumbling, even when I'm actually in nature even. There's the noisy birds in the trees, the rustling of the branches, the crunch of leaves beneath my feet. There's a lot of input to the system. And especially now that I'm a parent, my child always wants to be in my lap or in my arms. There's someone to navigate past on the sidewalk, or my turtleneck is rubbing at my chin kind of weird, or it's too hot or it's too cold in my office. I'm rarely physically at rest, rarely physically still. We are all very, very accustomed to filtering out sensory inputs, to cataloging them and prioritizing them, to becoming consumed by them or ignoring them. And all of that takes energy and effort, and when we strip it all away, we often find ourselves disoriented, profoundly uncomfortable, and strangely impatient to return to the myriad sensory inputs. My colleague, Christine Slocum, shared a story in which she was trapped in a traffic jam with her coworker. She found herself overwhelmed with impatience. She writes, "Reflecting on the experience, I realized that I wasn't impatient for impatience' sake. It was more that I feel an almost moral obligation towards advancement. It's all progress, improvement, efficiency, the next thing. It's capitalism, it's white supremacy. It's a deeply and viscerally internalized cultural ethic towards forward momentum. It permeates my entire perspective. My discomfort in the traffic jam was the dissonance of failing to meet that expectation. There I am, present in necessary stillness, and my body tingles with a version of the same anxiety I feel when I sense my career is stagnating, or I'm failing to become better in all the ways our society suggests we should, miles per hour, or milestones per lifetime, it feels all the same. Here in Christine's reflection lies the spiritual imperative towards finding that stillness. The world demands noise and light and movement to the detriment of our souls. There's a spiritual imperative towards finding that stillness, because in that stillness, we might become attuned to our truer selves, our deeper knowing. We might get a better grasp on our center, strengthened against the larger forces at play which distract and demean from the truths that rest within us. I went searching for my soul there on the tank on Front Street. I went in searching again and again after having failed at meditation, failed at solo retreats, because there's a longing in me to know myself better, more fully. A longing to experiment with what conditions I can hear that small voice inside which speaks from beyond knowing. There's a longing and there's a belief, an abiding belief that that voice is there. I just have to make room for it. And I have found it to be transformative, truly revelatory, what emerges in the darkness, in the silence, when my body becomes weightless, when my eyes aren't taking in constant color and texture, when my ears aren't absorbing the cacophony of life. Sometimes I find myself giggling. The silliness of it all. Naked in the salt water, I grin at this weird, floating, spinning rock upon which life has flourished, to the point where I paid good money to be here, in a box alone, trying to hear myself think, trying to hear my soul sing to me. Most of the time in the float, in the stillness and the silence, it's memories that come flooding back. I feel like instead of a flip book of my life, I get the space and time to run my fingers over the pages of my memory. I recall moments I had forgotten about completely, and they come back with a texture and an intensity which feels startling. And to be sure, not all memories are great. I don't particularly like every chapter in my life, or every version of myself that led up to now. But what comes to me, what emerges from the dark, what calls out from the stillness is that I'm still here on this weird, fast-moving marble in space. I have passed through each and every day, and here I am, and the truth is, I will keep on passing through it until the day I die. There is peace in that. Peace there in the soulful truth that we will keep on keeping on. This too shall pass. The good times won't last, and the bad times will not either. The soulful truth. I'm still here. And what comes through there in the tank too is a love for all those who have passed through my life and made it harder, thereby teaching me a lesson, or made it sweeter, thereby making my life richer. I leave infused with a love for myself and a love for others. And it feels crucial to maintain my faith. Charles A. Gaines wrote a poem entitled Patience and Silence. In it he writes, "How quiet it is when we have the patience to be silent. How much we can learn in moments like these. We can learn to have patience with ourselves, to better understand and like who and what we are. We can learn to have patience with others, to better listen to what they say and how they feel. We can learn to have patience with life, to better work with it and not against it. This is the peace I feel. When I find that stillness, when I cultivate patience, I open a pathway to a better version of myself, one that I believe lays in wait all the time. I'll admit that I still haven't mastered floating yet. I can only last the 50 minutes of the 90 that I've paid for, and I still sometimes leave the little blue light on so that there isn't total darkness. I experiment with it sometimes. I turn it off, turn it back on. And sometimes I play harp music on the speaker so that I'm not, alone entirely. I have the mystical plucking of strings. And I'm aware that these changes that I make to the environment, I'm aware that they're motivated by fear. What might emerge from the depths of my mind, the center of my being, if there was nothing but the rhythm of my own breath and endless black? What truth might be revealed? That I'm unhappy? That I'm unbearable and a bore? But there's a spiritual imperative to be willing to listen, no matter what. I can choose what comes next. Whether to accept those truths and act on them, or to let them pass, as all things do, until they're replaced by other truths. Parker Palmer, who wrote our reading today that David shared, he writes, "The soul speaks its truth only under quiet, inviting, and trustworthy conditions. There in the dark, deprived of distraction and stimulation, I feel my soul reach out through those memories, through time and space, to tell me of my nature as a person who fails all the time, but is still loved. You are people who fail all the time, but are still loved. We are all failing all the time and still loved. And I come to like myself more, to like others more. And that is a hope-filled endeavor. In your own lives, the quiet, inviting circumstances might look different. But beloveds, I implore you to explore. What conditions are necessary for you to hear your own soul? There is a spiritual imperative in stillness. To resist a culture which tells us forward always, movement always, to cultivate patience for ourselves and others, to try and love ourselves a little more, and a desire to be in relationship with our souls, that truer part of ourselves which lays in wait but must be coaxed to the fore. So go forth from this place today and find a stillness. Create an opportunity for you to access that inner light and then tell about it. I can't wait to hear. Blessed be. Amen.
Hi, I'm Reverend Hannah Capaldi.
And I'm Reverend Abby Tennis. We are the ministers at the First Unitarian Church of Philadelphia, where our mission is to awaken love and justice in our lives and in the world.
We're so grateful that you watched, and we hope that the sermon connected with your soul.
We also want to invite you to join us for a live worship service every Sunday at 11 a.m. Eastern Time. You can always find the link to that service on our website at www.philauu.org. In these services, you'll hear words like you've just heard, and you also get a chance to greet one another, pray together, sing together, and we even hold a virtual coffee hour after services to get a chance to greet some new and old friends.
If you want to support the mission of this community and you feel moved to give, You can do so by going to the website that Reverend Abby just mentioned. You can find that link below, or you can text 215-709-5095 and follow the prompts to give.
If someone in your life needs to hear these words today, we encourage you to share this video. And again, thank you so much for watching.
We hope to see you soon.